The alarm screamed at 5:45 a.m., but I'd been awake since 3 o'clock. Not the casual, roll over and check your phone kind of awake, the brutal, stare at the ceiling while your chest caves in kind. My hand moved to the phone before my brain gave permission, pure muscle memory at this point. The screen blazed white, and there it was, 23 unread messages. 23. At 5:47 in the morning. 3 from my boss about the Henderson project that's been hemorrhaging for weeks. 2 from accounting about invoices that should have been paid last Thursday. 4 from team members who apparently don't understand time zones or basic human decency. And buried beneath all of it, the electric bill reminder with a due date circled in digital red, plus a text from my mom that just said, "Call me when you can." Mirror moment, I caught my reflection in the black mirror of my phone screen, hair a disaster, eyes hollow, thumb already scrolling before I'd even sat up. And I thought, this is it. This is the shape of my life now. Waking up already behind, already drowning, already exhausted by a day that hasn't technically started yet. A memory surfaced, not a dramatic one, not a burning bush moment, just my mother's voice from 20 years ago, standing at the kitchen sink on a different Monday morning, drying her hands on a dish towel and saying, without even turning around, every Monday, before you hand this week over to fear, hand it to God first. Fear will take whatever you give it. So give God the first 5 minutes. I'd rolled my eyes at her back then. I was 17. What did I know about fear? What did I know about the weight of a Monday that starts at 3 a.m. with your heart doing drum solos against your ribs? But here's the thing about truth spoken by someone who loves you, it doesn't expire. It just waits. It waits in the back of your memory like a seed buried under frozen ground, and then one day, 5:47 a.m. in the middle of a rainstorm, it cracks open and reminds you that you've been doing this backward. You've been handing your week to fear before your feet even hit the floor. You've been scrolling through disaster before you've spoken a single word to the one who actually holds the disaster in his hands. Section hook, and that's when the scripture surfaced, not because I'm some super spiritual giant who wakes up quoting Proverbs, but because my mom had written it on a sticky note and stuck it to my laptop the last time she visited. It was still there, curled at the edges, coffee-stained, half hidden under a stack of bills. Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. I didn't even have to look it up. The words had been humming in the background of my life for years. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. Now, let's be real for a second. When your understanding looks like 23 unread messages and a bank account that's doing gymnastics it shouldn't be doing, lean not on your own understanding, sounds less like a comfort and more like a dare. Because my understanding is screaming at me to panic. My understanding has a PowerPoint presentation on why everything is falling apart. My understanding has charts, graphs, and a detailed timeline of exactly when the Henderson project is going to implode and take my career with it. But here's what I'm learning, what I'm still learning, sitting on the edge of that bed with the rain coming down, trust with all your heart isn't about having all the answers. It's not about pretending the pressure isn't real. It's not some spiritual bypass where you slap a Bible verse on your anxiety and call it faith. It's about direction. It's about who you face first. When you wake up and immediately face your phone, your inbox, your deadlines, your fears, those things become your North Star. They set the tone. They define the day. But when you turn first, before the scrolling, before the panicking, before the catastrophic mental rehearsal of everything that could go wrong, when you turn first to the God who wasn't surprised by any of this, something shifts. The Hebrew word for trust in that verse is batach, and it carries this visceral meaning of lying helplessly face down, of throwing yourself onto someone stronger. It's not a neat, tidy, theological concept. It's a body slam of surrender. It's saying, I can't carry this, and I wasn't designed to. And lean not on your own understanding. That word, lean, is the same word used for leaning on a spear or a staff, something you put your full weight on. The question isn't whether you'll lean. You will. The question is whether you'll lean on something that can actually hold you. My own understanding. That spear is splintered. It's been splintered for years. Every time I lean on it, I get a handful of broken wood and a deeper wound. But God, the one who set the stars in place and decided exactly how long this rainstorm would last and knew about the Henderson project before the foundation of the world. His shoulders don't buckle under the weight of my Monday. Memorable truth, the biggest fear you'll face this Monday morning isn't the deadline, the inbox, or the unpaid bill. It's that you'll forget who holds the clock, the calendar, and the outcome in hands that have never once trembled. I set the phone down. Face down. Screen to the bedsheet. A tiny act of defiance against the tyranny of notifications. The rain kept falling, but something in my chest had loosened, not all the way, not fixed, not a magical cure, but loosened. A sliver of light in a room that had been pitch black since 3 a.m. And I heard it again, not as memory this time but as invitation. Before you hand this week to fear, hand it to God first. So I did something that felt almost ridiculous in the moment. I didn't bow my head dramatically. I didn't kneel. I just lay there. Face still pressed into the sheets. Phone still dark. Rain still falling somewhere outside the window, that steady rhythm that usually calms me down but this morning just felt like a soundtrack to my failure. And I'll be honest with you, because I promised I would be, surrender didn't feel holy in that moment. It felt like quitting. It felt like admitting I couldn't hack it. POV, you're the person everyone calls strong, and you're crumbling inside at 5:47 a.m. on a Tuesday and nobody knows. I used to think surrender was just spiritual laziness dressed up in prayer language. You know the type, I'm just trusting God, while the bills pile up and the emails go unanswered. I thought letting go meant giving up. I thought faith was me doing everything humanly possible and then asking God to bless my panic. So I gripped harder. Every single time. And you know what's wild? I thought that was responsible. I thought that was being a good steward. I thought God was up there nodding like, yes, daughter, stress more, that's exactly what I asked for. But Proverbs don't say, stress with all your heart and lean on your spreadsheets. It says trust. Mirror moment, have you ever caught yourself believing that your anxiety is actually productivity? That if you're not worrying, you're not caring. That's not faith, that's fear wearing a business casual outfit. So there I was, still in bed, still not reaching for the phone, still tasting the bitter residue of 3 a.m. tears, and I started thinking about all the times I tried to be God in my own life. And then the memory hit me like a wave. 3 weeks ago. Parking lot. Walmart. 10 p.m. I was sitting in my car after buying nothing, literally walked through the store for 45 minutes and bought nothing because I couldn't focus, couldn't remember what I needed, couldn't think past the noise in my head. The parking lot was almost empty. Just a few scattered cars, the orange glow of streetlights, and me. And I broke. Not a cute, single tear down the cheek kind of break. The ugly kind. The kind where you're glad nobody's in the passenger seat because you sound like you're dying. I had just gotten the email. The Henderson project, the one that was supposed to save the quarter, the one I'd poured 6 months into, the one I'd prayed over and fasted over and worked weekends for, canceled. One paragraph. We've decided to go in a different direction. That's all it took to unravel everything. And on the same day, a friendship that had been fraying for months finally snapped. Words were said that can't be unsaid. A debt I didn't know about surfaced, some medical bill from a procedure last year that insurance had apparently decided wasn't their problem anymore. All of it landed on the same Thursday. Section hook, but here's what happened in that parking lot that changed everything, and I mean everything, about how I understand Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6. I sat there with my forehead on the steering wheel, not even a prayer, not even words, just this guttural sound that was half sob and half surrender, and I realized something I'd never let myself admit before. My understanding is laughably limited. It's not just imperfect, it's pathetic. I can't see 10 minutes into the future. I can't control whether a client wakes up on the wrong side of the bed and decides to cancel. I can't control whether someone I love chooses to stay or walk away. I can't control insurance companies or the economy or whether my body decides to betray me. I can't even control my own thoughts at 3 a.m. But I'd been living like I could. I'd been leaning my full weight on a spear that was already splintered. And that's when the verse hit me differently. Lean not on your own understanding. That word lean, shan in Hebrew, it's not a casual lean. It's not leaning against a wall while you scroll on your phone. It's putting your entire body weight on something. It's what you do when you can't stand anymore. The question was never whether I'd lean. The question was what I was leaning on. My own understanding. My spreadsheets and contingency plans and 2 a.m. panic sessions. That spear had been broken since day one. Every time I leaned on it, I ended up on the ground with splinters in my hands. Memorable truth, control is the greatest illusion the human heart can cling to. Surrender isn't giving up, it's handing the steering wheel to the only one who actually knows the road. So in that parking lot, with mascara running down my face and my throat raw from crying, I prayed the most honest prayer I've ever prayed. It wasn't polished. It wasn't theological. It wasn't even a full sentence. In the darkness of that car, with the engine off and the silence pressing in, I just whispered, God, I can't. I can't anymore. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where we're going. I don't know how to fix any of this. Please, you drive. That was it. 5 words at the end. You drive. And I wish I could tell you that angels showed up in the parking lot. That my phone buzzed with a miracle. That the Henderson Project called back 5 minutes later and said they'd changed their mind. That would make a better story, wouldn't it? But that's not what happened. What happened was quieter. Stranger. Harder to explain. I felt something lift. Not the circumstances, those were still a dumpster fire. But the weight of trying to be God shifted off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I breathed like someone who wasn't carrying the entire universe in her chest. The anxiety didn't disappear, but it loosened its grip. The fear was still there, but it wasn't the loudest voice in the room anymore. I sat in that parking lot for another 20 minutes. Not crying. Not praying. Just sitting. Just breathing. Just letting the truth of Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6 sink into the cracks of my exhausted soul, not as a memory verse I'd learned in Sunday school, but as a lifeline I was finally grabbing with both hands. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. But that's not what happened. What happened was stranger. Quieter. Harder to explain to someone who's never been through it. I woke up the next morning, and the problems were still there. The unpaid invoices. The unanswered emails. The conversation I was still avoiding with my landlord. Nothing in my circumstances had changed. Not one single thing. But something in me had shifted. I can't describe it except to say this, the weight that had been crushing my chest at 3 a.m. wasn't gone, but it wasn't mine to carry anymore. It was like I'd been holding a boulder underwater, convinced I was the only thing keeping it from floating away, and someone finally said, "Let go. The ground is right beneath it." And I did. And the boulder just sat there. It didn't disappear. But I wasn't drowning under it anymore. The Apostle Paul wrote something about a peace that surpasses all understanding, a peace that doesn't make sense on paper, that can't be explained by circumstances, that shows up right in the middle of the storm and just stays there. But that Tuesday morning, I felt it for the first time. Not the absence of problems. The presence of peace in the middle of them. Once I stopped trying to control everything, I started noticing things I'd been too frantic to see before. Small things. A friend I hadn't talked to in months called me out of nowhere, not because she knew I was struggling, just because she had a feeling. She ended up connecting me with someone who needed freelance work. It wasn't the Henderson Project. It was smaller. But it was something. A solution to a work problem I'd been banging my head against for weeks just appeared. I'm saying that when I finally got my white-knuckled hands off the steering wheel, I started noticing the small doors he'd been opening the whole time, doors I was too busy staring at the closed ones to see. Memorable truth: God rarely kicks down the door you're fixated on. More often, He's been holding open another one just to your left, waiting for you to stop banging long enough to notice. Now, let me bring this to you. Because I know someone watching this right now is where I was that night in the parking lot. Maybe you're there literally, sitting in your car after work, trying to get yourself together before you walk through the front door. Maybe you're there emotionally, exhausted from pretending you're okay, tired of fighting battles no one knows about, wondering if God actually sees you or if you've somehow slipped through the cracks. I want you to take a deep breath with me right now. Right where you're sitting. Inhale slow. Exhale slower. Think about your last 7 days. The moments you felt completely alone. The nights you stared at the ceiling and replayed every decision you've ever made. The conversations where you smiled and said, "I'm fine," when you were anything but. The prayers you whispered that felt like they hit the ceiling and bounced back. I need you to hear this, and I need you to hear it from someone who's been in the pit, not from someone preaching from a mountaintop. You are not alone in this fight. And you were never designed to fight it by yourself. The whole reason surrender feels like death is because we've built our identity on being the one who holds it together. We've convinced ourselves that if we let go, everything will fall apart. But that's a lie that's been gaslighting you for years. The truth is, you were never the one holding it together in the first place. You were just the one losing sleep trying. So here's what I want to do. I want to pray with you, not as someone who has it all figured out, not as someone standing on a stage with perfect theology and a spotless life. I want to pray as someone who has doubted, who has questioned, who has sat in parking lots with mascara running down her face and whispered, "God, I can't." And I want to pray specifically for your week ahead. Father, I come to you this morning not with polished words, but with an open heart. I bring myself, and I bring the person listening right now who feels like they're running on empty. Lord, we need your direction for this week. Not vague direction. Not spiritual-sounding platitudes. Real, concrete, step-by-step guidance. Show us what is from you and what is just noise. Give us the courage to say no to things that aren't part of your plan, even good things, even things other people expect from us, even things we've already said yes to that are draining us dry. Give us the humility to accept help. We're so bad at this, Father. We'd rather drown than admit we can't swim. Break that pride in us gently. Send the right people. Open our eyes to see them when they come. And Lord, give us patience, not the fake kind where we pretend we're fine while we're dying inside, but the deep kind that trusts your timing even when it makes no sense to us. Help us wait without giving up. Help us hope without pretending. Help us rest without feeling guilty about it. For the person listening who's facing a decision this week and they don't know which way to go, make the path clear. Close doors that need to be closed. Open the ones that need to be opened. And give them peace about the difference. For the person who's facing another week of the same struggle, the same waiting, the same disappointment, renew their strength. Not necessarily their circumstances, but their strength to keep walking through them. For the person who's this close to giving up, meet them right where they are. In the car. In the break room. In the bathroom where they're hiding to cry. In the bed they can't get out of. Show up in a way they can't miss. I'm not going to ask you to make all our problems disappear this week, because I know you work deeper than that. But I am asking you to make your presence undeniable. Let us feel you in the small moments. Let us see you in the unexpected phone calls, the sudden ideas, the strength to get out of bed one more time. We trust you. And for the places where trust is hard, help our unbelief.